How many times have you found yourself harshly judging yourself for a mistake? Maybe it was something simple, like forgetting an appointment, or something that feels more significant, like hurting someone you love. It's a common weight, isn't it? That inner voice that insists on pointing out what we did wrong, constantly reminding us of our imperfections. However, what Buddhism teaches us is that this relentless self-judgment doesn't have to be our natural state. There is a way to relate to our mistakes and imperfections with more kindness and wisdom. Instead of seeing them as burdens, we can begin to view them as essential parts of who we are, transient and transformative elements in the journey of self-discovery. We all make mistakes, and that's undeniable. But what determines our inner peace isn't the absence of errors, it's how we choose to handle them. And this is where Buddhism offers us precious tools. It invites us to explore self-acceptance, not as an excuse for complacency, but as a practice of compassion toward ourselves. Today, let's dive into this much-needed topic together. We'll explore how Buddhism helps us transform moments of self-criticism into opportunities for growth. By the end, I hope you'll feel not only inspired but also courageous enough to see yourself more lovingly. After all, accepting our mistakes is the first step toward embracing the peace we so deeply seek. In Buddhism, there's a central truth that can bring great relief when dealing with our mistakes: impermanence. Everything in life is in constant flux, our thoughts, feelings, and even situations that seem fixed. When we make a mistake, the initial feeling may be that it defines us, as if it's a permanent mark. But just as seasons change and clouds pass, our mistakes are also transient. They aren't the entirety of who we are, they're merely moments in the flow of life. Moreover, Buddhism talks about the concept of dukkha, often translated as suffering. Part of this suffering comes from our attachment, and one of the most common attachments is the idea that we must be perfect. When we believe we must never fail, we place an impossible weight on ourselves. And each time we inevitably make a mistake, we feel guilt, shame, and deep frustration. Clinging to perfection is like trying to hold sand in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. But what would happen if we changed our perspective? In Buddhism, mistakes are not definitive failures, but opportunities for learning. They show us where there's still room to grow, where we need more attention and care. It's like a teacher pointing out the way, even if sometimes uncomfortably. Each mistake carries a lesson, if we're willing to listen. So, instead of viewing our mistakes as insurmountable obstacles, we can start to recognize them as a natural part of the human journey. They're not enemies to be fought, but allies in the process of evolution. And this simple shift in perspective can be profoundly liberating. When we make a mistake, the mind's natural tendency is to cling to it, replaying it over and over as if that could erase it. This is where the practice of mindfulness becomes a powerful tool. In Buddhism, mindfulness means being present, observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment. It's the ability to acknowledge what we're feeling without fully identifying with those feelings. Imagine this: you make a mistake, feel frustrated, and start replaying how you could have acted differently. Instead of being swept away by this current of self-criticism, mindfulness allows you to pause. You can observe your thoughts as they arise, and say to yourself, "This is a mistake. I feel guilty. But this doesn't define who I am." This practice of observation helps create a space between the mistake and your emotional reaction. By applying mindfulness, we learn to see mistakes as fleeting events. They become like clouds passing through the sky of the mind. We can observe them, acknowledge them, but we don't have to hold on to them. A practical example? When a self-critical thought arises, try pausing, taking a deep breath, and mentally saying, "This is just a thought. It's not the whole truth." This emotional detachment doesn't mean ignoring mistakes or pretending they didn't happen. On the contrary, it's about seeing them clearly, without the unnecessary weight of guilt. When we can objectively examine our mistakes, they lose the power to paralyze us. We see not only what went wrong, but also what we can do differently next time. Mindfulness offers us the chance to reframe mistakes. They stop being scary monsters and become simple steps on our path. Over time, this practice strengthens us to face any challenge life presents. In moments of error, self-criticism can feel like an automatic reaction. We judge ourselves harshly, thinking that being tough on ourselves will correct us. However, Buddhism teaches us that this path rarely leads to transformation. True growth is born from compassion, including compassion for ourselves. Self-compassion doesn't mean avoiding responsibility. It's about learning to acknowledge mistakes without punishing ourselves for them. Imagine a dear friend who made a misstep. You probably wouldn't treat them harshly, but would listen, offering words of understanding and support. Why, then, can't we do the same for ourselves? By cultivating this inner kindness, we become stronger, not weaker. Buddhism offers simple yet powerful practices to develop self-compassion. One of them is repeating mantras in difficult moments, such as, "I forgive myself, I learn, I move forward." Or reflecting on a universal truth, "Everyone makes mistakes, I am not alone." These phrases, though simple, remind us that we are part of a shared humanity where failure is an inherent part of the human condition. Self-compassion not only transforms how we deal with our own mistakes, but also influences our relationships. When we learn to accept our own flaws, we become more understanding of others' flaws. A person who treats themselves kindly is more capable of offering that kindness to the world, creating deeper and more authentic connections. So, when facing a mistake, try practicing compassion instead of criticism. Treat yourself as you would someone you love. This change in approach isn't just an act of kindness, but a catalyst for true transformation. Why do we cling so tightly to the idea of being perfect? Deep down, this pursuit is rooted in our desire to be accepted, valued, and loved. But Buddhism invites us to question this premise. What if perfection, as we imagine it, doesn't exist? What if it's merely an illusion, a construct that keeps us trapped in a cycle of frustration? Detachment, a central concept in Buddhism, doesn't mean indifference or carelessness. It means letting go of what prevents us from living fully. In the case of perfection, it's about abandoning the idealized image of who we think we should be. When we release this expectation, we discover there's lightness in being exactly who we are, with all our flaws and imperfections. This practice begins with a simple reflection: what unrealistic standard are you carrying? Perhaps it's the belief that you should never make mistakes or that you must always meet others' expectations. Once you identify this standard, ask yourself, does it truly serve me? Or is it simply preventing me from being authentic? One practical way to cultivate detachment is through meditation. Try sitting in silence and, with each breath, visualize yourself letting go of the expectations you carry. Imagine them as a weight you set down, allowing yourself to feel lighter. Gradually, this practice can help transform your relationship with the idea of perfection. When we accept the present as it is, rather than how we think it should be, we create space for authenticity. Instead of seeking external validation, we begin to live in alignment with our essence. And in this state, we find a freedom that is deeply transformative, the freedom to be imperfect yet whole. Meditation, in the Buddhist context, is far more than a relaxation technique. It's a transformative practice that helps us observe our thoughts and emotions with clarity and neutrality. When we sit to meditate, we're not trying to turn off the mind, but rather to see it as it is, with its restlessness, judgments, and, yes, its mistakes. In reflecting on our own errors, meditation becomes a powerful ally in self-awareness. It's in this state of stillness that we can acknowledge our imperfections without resistance, without running from or condemning them. Sitting in silence, we focus on the breath and repeat simple phrases that connect us to acceptance, like, I am human. I am imperfect. I am enough. These words are not just affirmations, they're reminders that we are worthy of compassion, even in our most challenging moments. Regular meditation practice also helps us build emotional resilience. Over time, it strengthens our ability to handle mistakes and adversities with greater balance. When the mind learns to observe rather than react impulsively, we begin to see that mistakes don't have the power to destroy us. They are simply events that come and go, like waves in the ocean. If you've never meditated before, that's okay. Start with just a few minutes a day. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, and observe your breath. Don't try to control or change anything, just be present. Over time, you'll notice that this simple practice can bring a significant shift in how you relate to yourself and life's challenges. Meditation is more than a tool, it's an invitation to connect with our essence beyond flaws and expectations. It shows us that, at our core, we are already whole, just as we are. Accepting your own mistakes and imperfections is not a sign of weakness, but of courage. It's an act that demands vulnerability and, at the same time, profound inner strength. Along this path, we learn that perfection is not the goal, compassion is, both for ourselves and for others. Remember, your mistakes don't define who you are. They are merely chapters in the story of your life, not the entire narrative. What truly matters is how you choose to respond to those moments. How you transform the pain of self-criticism into learning and growth. The message I want to leave with you is simple: you are not your mistakes. You are the person who has the power to learn from them, to rise, to try again. No matter how difficult the path may be, every step is an opportunity to start anew. Finally, I want to thank you for being here. Your presence, your attention, and your willingness to reflect on such deeply human themes are inspiring. May you find peace and acceptance in your journey. And remember, to be human is to be imperfect, and in that imperfection lies your true beauty.